welcome back to a brand new episode of Your Wealth and Beyond. And today we're joined by Scott Snider, the president of Exit Planning Institute and a nationally recognized leader in exit planning and business growth. Scott launched his first business at 17, sold it by 24, and has since dedicated his career to helping entrepreneurs prepare for successful exits. Scott, honor to have you. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me. I love your studio too. I have the same type of wood background in my studio too. It was really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, I was checking out your podcast. I do like the warmth of it as well. And
yeah, right.
Love to have a Cleveland boy on. You probably don't know I grew up in Cleveland. Been out here in Arizona for a while, but how's Cleveland doing this summer? Little rainy, little hot?
Yeah, man. I would say, born and raised in Cleveland. I love it here. I travel a lot, so I love coming home. But I would say this year, yeah, man, it's been like super, super rainy. So it's either typical, I would say like Midwest or like lake weather, right? Where it's either really hot and, muggy and sticky or cold and rainy. So we're getting a little bit of that rain this weekend, but we're supposed to, a little bit of the rain today, but we're supposed to have a beautiful weekend.
Well, I'm super excited to have you on, as the show itself is about helping business owners, entrepreneurs find wealth, find purpose. But I'm also an advisor, built an advisory practice all these years. We know how important it is, you and I do, about the exiting of a business, but all the things that happen before that, both on the business side, also on the personal side. And I love what you've built, since you and your dad took over the company. So business owners, entrepreneurs, you're going to learn a lot today, and very excited to jump in. So your background, as we stated, you kind of had that entrepreneur itch as a young teenager. Was this always a passion of yours, being an entrepreneur, building businesses, and also helping business owners take it to the next level and then sell?
Yeah, man, it's a great question. I was asked this question just the other day too, like where did I get my entrepreneurial itch from? And the first thing that came to mind and comes to mind now is my dad was, when I was a little kid, call it 8 years old, my dad would travel all the time, and for time being, he actually lived part of the week down in Atlanta, would travel home on the weekends and travel back down to Atlanta, right? And it was back in the day where people would wear full-blown suits when they would travel. So Dad would travel with 4 pairs of dress shoes, and when he would come home, he would need those dress shoes polished. And I used to always say, Dad, Mom had taught me how to polish some shoes. Can I start? My first offer was can I start polishing a pair of shoes, $5 each pair? And for an 8-year-old, I was like, dude, I'm gonna have 16, $20 here or whatever it might be by the end of the day. And so Dad said yes. What I didn't realize that I appreciate a lot more now was that Dad would give me only $2.50 per pair. And I would say, Dad, what's going on here, man? He said, you agreed to $5. He's like, yeah, but you got to take savings out and taxes. And so he would give me $2.50 a pair. And then I tried to get a job, and I lasted for a month. I was a janitor at an all-boys high school, which is the high school that I attended here in Cleveland, St. Ed's. And once my friends knew that I was the janitor of the basement floor bathrooms, it became a pretty dirty job, right? And so I ended up throwing a lawnmower in the back of a Ford Taurus sedan and just calling myself a landscaper. And that's, maybe to more directly answer your question, is that's when I really learned the creativity, the solutions, the customer relationships, the experiences that we were giving, the servant leadership I think that a lot of entrepreneurs provide their clients and community. That's what I really fell in love with. And my skill happened at the time to be landscape maintenance and construction and snow removal, being here in Cleveland.
And that was the business that you built up and then sold?
Yeah, that was the business. We started with that Ford Taurus sedan, and we sold with nearly 20 employees and a dozen truck operation, right, where we were full blown from snow and ice management to landscape design and construction to your typical kind of lawn maintenance and fall and spring cleanups.
So then how did you get into, after that, did that kind of pique your interest in seeing how the whole process works when you build a company and then you sell it, and then it's what do I do next, and did I get the most value for it? Is that what piqued your interest to get into this side of it?
Yeah, this side of it, right, totally different, right, from wearing khaki pants and a polo, digging holes for trees, to now in professional education and community building. my first exposure to the world of exit planning, the world that we live in now, was when I sold my landscaping company. And Dad had just become a SEPA, so me and Dad are partners now, right? So a lot of when I tell the story, they're like, "Well, isn't your dad a SEPA? He didn't help you?" And so he is a SEPA, but at the time he was just getting his designation. And at the time, back in 2010, EPI was only 5 years old, and there was only my dad was certificate number 93, and so kind of one of the pioneers, if you will, of our profession. And as Dad was focused on business consulting, I was going through this exit. So certainly Dad was on my advisory team. He was the first bank that I went to, right, when I needed to get my first truck and lawnmower, and I didn't have any credit. And so he was pretty involved, is my point. What my dad had learned at the SEPA program and then saw me go through was one of the three legs of the stool. So for any owner listening, to have a very significant, fulfilling, and successful exit, we need to have business, personal, and financial elements kind of all aligned and all in tune. And even at a young age, I think I was like 24 years old, I had totally lacked all personal planning. And so my first exit planning lesson was I had let my business define me. And so even at 24 years old, I spent 2 years of my life quite literally just wandering around, right? I had more money in my back pocket versus my friends in college that were starting to pay off their debt and get their first jobs. You know, I did all kinds of cool stuff, but at the same time, I had a lot of hurdles that I had to climb. So I always say I played professional indoor soccer, which was like a dream for me, right? I've always wanted to get paid to play the sport that I grew up playing. Never thought it could happen, and it did. But I also got a divorce. And so two polar opposite kind of feelings that you get as a human being. And that's when I fell into Dad's business. And Dad was a SEPA doing this type of work that we talk about today. And that's when I fell in love with, I think, business as a whole, right? Like my world was landscape construction for a while, and then I got to meet all kinds of different owners. And then I challenged Dad to flip the script. I said, Dad, instead of working with owners, I think we should be working with advisors, and we should be taking the methodology that you have created and putting and giving that to advisors. And if we could create more educated advisors, they can make some impact with owners and start to change their outcomes and drive them towards more significance. So Dad and I bought EPI in, I think, the October of 2012 and put his methodology into the curriculum of the credential in 2013.
That's awesome. And so for the listeners out there that don't know what a SEPA is or don't know what exit planning is,
Sure.
let's define that. Let's go through quickly the mission, values, what you guys have built, what you
Sure.
see, and then we'll go through all the nuances.
Yeah, so EPI is the Exit Planning Institute, and so we teach professional advisors how to help business owners drive value and align their business, personal, and financial goals. And so SEPA is a certified exit planning advisors that's trained inside of the value acceleration methodology. They have their expertise, so they could be a financial advisor, an attorney, a growth consultant, an M&A advisor, and really any advisor that you have surrounding yourself as a business owner. But as a SEPA, they understand the holistic methodology, and they understand how to collaborate and connect you to all the advisors that are going to make this thing happen. So we have about 8,000 of those folks in the United States today and growing. And we provide those advisors with the education and the community that they need to help owners grow a company of significance. And to round that out, I would leave that the definition as, I think most owners want a significant company. They want one that is highly profitable, highly ready and attractive, and highly valuable, that is transitionable really at any time. It gives them a lot of options for transition along their career that's also aligned to their business, personal, and financial goals. And that's what we do here at EPI.
So what have you seen over the years that some of the major mistakes that business owners make with regards to whether they have advisors or not, but ultimately what we see a lot of them not talking and communicating.
Sure.
But let's go through that for the business owners putting blood, sweat, and tears. They're building a great company. They maybe don't know what they don't know.
They don't. Yeah.
Where can we start?
I think you're spot on. We don't know what we don't know. I could tell you, outside of my dad and my business owner journey, and maybe many of your listeners that are owners as well can kind of feel this, is that a lot of the books that we read, a lot of the mentors that we have, they teach us how to grow a very successful company, one that has a strong P&L, a strong balance sheet. You have great relationships with your customers. You have good or great employees. You help create your culture and your rhythm. and you're focused on year over year, right? How do I get to the next milestone? How do I grow my company by 10 or 20% each year? But what you don't realize is that you're stuck in this kind of risk mitigation and income generation mindset. You're not focused on a value creation type mindset. And so from a pure business standpoint, you're growing a company that might be successful year over year, but you're not translating that over to value. And so yes, you have a deep relationship with your customer, but that one customer is actually 50% of your revenue. So your business actually, even though profitable, might not be as valuable as it could be. So one, I think, is our mindset. The one mistake, I think, is the mindset is we don't enter business thinking about being a value creator. We enter business trying to create a good business that runs, that's profitable, and that could survive every year. Beyond that, it goes outside of business. Well, I think another mistake that we make is we're proud of the exit that does happen. We make $20 million, and then a year from now we go, dude, I'm friggin' bored out of my mind. In fact, I profoundly regret selling my business. I should have never sold it, man. And so we're not taking in the personal side of who we are too, like what makes us tick. I think many owners think personal planning is about what hobbies we're going to have. They're like, man, I'm going to play golf. I'm going to move to a golf course. I'm going to play golf. And what you don't know is why you're going to play golf. Like, what's your purpose and what's the vision? What you then do is move to the golf course and you play golf. And then you're like, dude, I used to play like 2 times a week, and it was a great hobby. I had fun. But now I'm playing like every day, and I'm always surrounded by it because now I live on the golf course. I friggin' hate this. I should have just kept my business. Is that you don't know why you're playing golf. You just focused on the hobby. You didn't focus on the vision and the purpose. And so I don't think many owners focus on personal planning. They focus on business planning because it's more natural to us. But that's the kind of that's the dilemma, I think, that owners that are in and perhaps lead to your question around the most kind of commonly mistakes that they make along the way.
So then what are you teaching the 8,000 plus as they're working in the trenches, working with the business owner, helping them hopefully on all aspects, the personal side of things. And you think about that purpose, and it's the same thing even for a retiree who doesn't own a business. We walk through that too with them as well. What's it going to look like? So what are some of the things that that you have found valuable as somebody's trying to determine out what do I sell? What's the next step look like? Financially, I'm going to be okay. But how do I build out this purpose of what my life's going to be? Because the business shapes us on a day-to-day, and it is
I think it
fully
does.
who we are.
Yeah, I think I would get back to the basics. I would say at the end of the day, what we're teaching our SEPAs and what they're bestowing then on the business owner themselves is that exit isn't something that happens when you're like ready to exit. I think really when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, one of the problems is, and what we're teaching is, exit is right now. It's all around us. It can come at any time. I was 24 when I sold my first company, and I sold it to a strategic buyer and an unsolicited offer. They just said, hey, man, we like your people. We like your product. We like the way you do business. Have you ever thought about selling your company? And so what we teach is that exit is something that you embrace every single day. And when you bleed together this business, personal, and financial model, the other thing that when you ask me that question that comes to mind is, we're also teaching a 2 concurrent path model. I think for many of us as business owners, we feel really comfortable following that business path, right? That's kind of what we've been doing for years. That's what we're passionate about. And I think we hear it a lot from our advisors. I'm sure 9 out of 10 people have heard as a business owner, you need to stop working in your business and start working on your business, right? They're talking about decentralizing you as the owner, acting more strategic and more visionary for your business and thrusting the business forward. But what we don't hear as business owners is you got to stop just living in your life and you got to work on your life. We actually have 2 concurrent paths that we have. We have a business path, and then we have a personal and personal financial path. And instead of focusing on those paths somewhere down the line, we bring that conversation around value creation into the present. And that's what we're teaching advisors, how to unlock that mentality to the business owner. So for those of you that are working with SEPAs, you probably have that mentality. The SEPA was able to teach you that. Then you started living it, and now they're helping you through those 2 concurrent paths that we're working on every single 90 days and advancing throughout our career. So whether I'm 40 years old or whether I'm 70 years old, I have that kind of value creation mentality across all 3 legs of the stool: business, personal, and financial.
Yeah, no, that's great. And, I've been part of Entrepreneurs Organization since 2018. It's a lot of what we learn and we teach within that world. The, but, I just, in our space on the advisory side, we just see so many advisors that are not looking at what you just said,
Yeah.
and that gets a detriment. And, if you think about the connection that you can build with your client, that business owner, by going through some of the things that you've talked about, it's instrumental in developing and deepening that, and also putting them on a path for mentally for that success.
I think you're spot on too. I think if you studied owners today across all generations, I think the business landscape is changing when business owners look to their advisors. I think traditionally advisors have been looked to as transactional people. Like, I need my taxes done, get my taxes done. I have this legal issue, make sure I'm protected. I need life insurance, give me a good plan. What I think owners today, and then as you bleed down into the younger generations, 55, 45, 35, 25, when they're looking at these advisors that surround them, they're looking for more relationships. So we're moving away from the transactional behavior and moving into a relationship behavior, and they're looking to connect on deeper levels. And I think in part, to your point too, it's when you're looking at it holistically, business, personal, and financial, it allows us to start to do that. Your point with advisors, there's only 8,000 CPAs out there, and there's like 600,000 CPAs in our country, right? So the mentality is starting to shift for sure, but I think it's a long ride.
What's the breakdown of these 8,000 plus
Sure.
regarding advisors, CPAs,
Yeah.
insurance? It's a mixed bag, I assume. Is
It
it
is.
more heavily weighted on the financial advisor side versus CPA?
It is. About 62% of EPI's membership or CPA base is a financial advisor. The next biggest is a growth consultant, and so somebody that's helping you grow value in your business and grow profits more short term. And then an M&A advisor, a family advisor, and a CPA. Those are likely the makeup of the majority of the CPAs that you see.
And what are you seeing as what are some of the key drivers that we can talk through on this transferable value, this building the wealth of the company? What are some things that business owners right now that think they're doing things really well, but maybe it's all on them and they haven't built the systems and the processes and all of the things that make the business that much more enterprise value? What are some of the key things that you guys work with when you're teaching and you guys are learning together?
Yeah, one of the concepts that we teach inside of the 5 concepts that we have, a part of the value acceleration methodology, is this concept around the 4 intangible capitals. These 4 intangible capitals have about 80% of your company's value. And what I like about them, and I think what the benefit of your business owner listening, you're going to say, man, I do that kind of stuff every single day. But again, it goes to the mentality. You're doing it with income in mind, not value in mind. So it makes a really good company today, but it doesn't necessarily transfer to value. So the 4 intangible capitals are your structural capital. This is all of your intellectual property, your process, your standard operating procedure. How is all of that transferred to another owner? To your point, is the business still centralized around you? Are you leading operations, executive leadership, strategic planning, marketing, and sales? So how can we create and decentralize that, put that into structural capital, and have other people run it for us, which leads me to people, employees. So human capital. Can the business be run without you? Can you leave for 2 weeks? Can you leave for a month? And can the business continue to grow and thrive without you around? Are you in the best seat? Are you in your highest and best use? For some of us, we're more visionary. For some of us, we're more producers. Regardless of what that is, what are you doing on the day-to-day? The next is really associated with human is the third C, which is social capital. Social capital is your culture, your jive, the way you communicate. Is that culture built around you as the owner, or is it really employee-driven? And then last but not least is your customer capital. Customer capital is what we kind of talked about before, is the relationships, the longevity, the tenure of your customer. And is that relationship with you, or is it with the firm? Are they bought into you, or are they bought into the product or service or community that you've built? And then you look at customer concentration. Yes, you have a lot of revenue, but 25, 30% of it is coming from 1 or 2 customers. That's a problem, especially when you are the catalyst to that relationship as well. So when we look at how value is driven, we look across all those 4 C's. And that should answer the question for many owners is, we both have education companies. One is selling for 10 times and one is selling for 5 times. Why? And because the person on the 10 times side is venturing towards best in class because they've managed value across all 4 C's.
Yeah, and we were doing a little pregame beforehand, and you're going to be heading out for 2 weeks.
Yes.
So you've, you practice what you preach. You've grown EPI now. Besides the 8, you have about 50 employees or so.
Yeah, we have like 48 employees now.
So you're going to be heading out, RVing it with the fam. Are you going to be able to disconnect?
Yeah. So I do. You have to live right when it's actually even more pressure being an owner and president of the Exit Planning Institute, because you have to be able to live your own methodology. It has allowed me, even at 40 years old, to live that kind of live that out. And so, yeah, so the August 1st to August 15th trip I've done now. This is our 3rd year, and it is quite literally close. I bring the computer, so it's there in case something happens, but it doesn't come out of the backpack. And that's a promise to my wife and kids. And so, yeah, I will disconnect for 2 weeks. I have a great executive assistant. I get a great team and a great team overall at EPI that we should be able to thrust the business forward for 2 weeks without me. I tried to do another 2 weeks in July where I have it at about 50-50 if I'm being totally transparent with you. My wife's birthday is July 2nd, so I try to go away for the first 2 weeks of July too. We have a family lake house in central Ohio and try to disconnect there. So my promise during that trip is that by 3 p.m. every day we're on the pontoon boat with my kids. And so I for 14 days, or call it 10 business days, I think I missed it twice. So I think I was pretty proud of it. But nonetheless, yeah,
Right.
it does allow you to disconnect for sure.
And looking out at businesses out there, would you say the high percentage that are family-run businesses, where we've got the relationships, and you obviously starting the business or buying the business with your dad, you can practice what you preach there of building a business with family. Because it is such a high percentage of these businesses out there, what are some of the strategies that can be there to help facilitate a good building of a business and also the exit, but when you're dealing with family?
Yeah, man, it's definitely not easy, right? Me and my dad obviously go way back in terms of being business partners and advisors. And then the whole exit planning process becomes, I think, a little bit more complex too, right? Dad's 66, I'm 40, and Dad now is totally outside of the business. But it took us a while to get there, right? I would say for family business owners listening, I do think there's a formula to it. One is, I think you got to practice. Like, you have to constantly be evolving your relationship with your father or mother or whatever brothers and sisters that might be in the business. For me and my dad, we follow something called the Family Business Blueprint, a part of a book by a gentleman named Tom Deans called Every Family's Business. There's about a dozen questions that you're supposed to ask and answer every single year, and they're simple, but it just creates conversation. And then you start to have dialogue. Now, you can't have that conversation if there's not respect built in, right? Because it's sometimes kind of heated. One of the questions that is asked, if you got an offer on the table right now, would you take it? Now, at 66 years old, if we got an offer on EPI, my dad might want to take it. But at 40 years old, with a 5-year strategy on the horizon for me that I think that we can hit and double the company size, I might say, Dad, don't sell now, man. Like, this is where we got to go. And so now me and Dad have, given that one said yes, one said no, now we have to have a conversation. So we also have what we call trust accelerators built into our relationship that are supposed to accelerate trust and accelerate communication that we have developed. Something as simple as put it on the table. So me and Dad can meet for 2 hours in a partners meeting, but if I don't put it on the table and I leave it under the table, I'm going to leave the meeting kind of pissed off. Or deliver the mail to the right address. So when Dad has a problem to me and then he goes talk to my mom about it, Mom's going to say, well, why didn't you just talk to Scott about that then? So you're delivering the mail to the wrong address. My point being is you can have the framework of Tom Dean's Family Business Blueprint, but there's got to be practice and respect in there. And then I try to invest in my relationship with my dad. I think too many business owners go, well, that's my boss, the president, the CEO, and the business owner, and you forget that it's your father. And so me and Dad try to take 2 trips a year where we go out and don't talk about business. We actually went out to your end this year. We did a golf trip in Arizona, and I could tell you for 4 days, Dad and I did not talk about business. We talked about being dads and my dad being a grandpa and that kind of stuff. And I think it's that intentionality that allows family relationships in business, which are pretty intense, to continue to flourish and grow. But
No,
there's some practice.
that's strong. Yeah, and having the communication and, and I think there's a lot of businesses that are in your position too, where you've got one of the, if it's family or not, but founder, age difference,
Yeah.
one's looking to exit out. Obviously, there's strategic things that can be done to not sell the business, but to get that owner share. If they're a boomer and they're looking to retire, there's ways to do it. And I'm sure you guys, with yourself, you're probably looking at that as well. How does a business owner find somebody who's certified in this? I know that the advisors are out there marketing and the CPAs, but if I'm a business owner, how do I know if my guy, my gal, my team is equipped to help me do these certain things?
Sure. I mean, two, right? I think there's two answers that come to mind. One, ask, right? Say, hey, we've been talking about succession or exit or transition strategy. We've been talking about building value. Do you have any type of background, credential, or community that you're a part of that might help here? Two is I would just go on drivevalue.com. So if a business owner is listening, go to drivevalue.com, and there's a whole community for you out there. It's a community of owners that like to drive value into their company and use experts to do it. And so you can find them online. And so for our community specifically, you do findacpa.com. You can find certified professionals all across the country.
And then when we look out at the buyers today, I know businesses across the board, it's going to be different, but are we seeing a higher percentage of it being sold to a private equity, venture capital type, or is it more of these businesses are being sold to buyers that want to be in the weeds and build it and grow it?
I think it's a really good question. I think the landscape's kind of changing. I'd answer it like this. One, it's going to depend on kind of your revenue range, right? So what me and Dad were, we were financial buyers, just a couple of guys with some cash that wanted to buy a business. We've grown EPI to a point where maybe there's a couple of options for us. Maybe it's an employee buyout. I think that we have 50 employees here. Maybe they want to do something like an ESOP, an employee stock ownership plan, or there's a private equity play. People that like online communities, online education, we could have a play there. My point being is, I think owners need to have multiple options throughout, and I think that's the purpose of planning. Is that using my own scenario at 40 and 66, maybe I bring in a partner that could buy out Dad partially, and buy me out partially, and I roll 25% for the next 5 years, and then we do an ESOP. I think the beauty of the planning that we do is that we have multiple bites of the apple along the way, where traditionally we think of one bite of the apple. I think that as owners we should have multiple bites along the way, diversifying our personal financial portfolio as we grow our business, which happens to be our largest asset. The thing that was most fascinating to me today is this concept around ETA, entrepreneurship through acquisition. So these folks that are retired from the military, folks that are graduating with their MBA, are looking to buy successful companies. And I think it opens up a really interesting exit option for business owners that might not have family in the business, but don't necessarily want to sell to a private equity firm or a strategic, synergistic buyer that might be a competitor. It kind of allows somebody to come into your business and builds in a successor along the way that you could bestow this knowledge on, and then eventually will buy you out of your company. And it's a little bit more of a personal touch and a legacy play than maybe an outright sale. So multiple options I think that are out there for business owners, and I think the most emerging that I see is this concept of entrepreneurship through acquisition.
Yeah, and in the landscape with a lot of these, baby boomers that were business owners that are in their late 60s now, early 70s. It's and again, we're not talking. Sometimes it doesn't have to be a $50 million sale. It doesn't have to be. I mean, a lot of these are $500,000, $1.5 million, and that's. I guess that's also one of the issues with these small business owners of why they don't want to sell, because they're like, well, I can make this income. But my multiple is not that big because I really don't have a real company. Right. So for that side of it, are you seeing that landscape here where there's a plethora of potential businesses to be sold to the millennials and the Gen Z?
No doubt. I think this is like you don't go down a rabbit hole here, so I'll try to be brief. I think it's actually really fascinating to look at this landscape. To your point, we study, so we do a lot of research here at EPI, and we're starting to really study the different generations, because the younger generations are now kind of age, if you will, where they would be buying or starting companies. along the way. And so if you looked at baby boomers, 57% of boomers are saying they want to sell their company in the next 5 years. So there is going to be, and the age range would tell you that, right? I think we've heard this for a long time. We haven't seen it really come to market, but the average boomer is 67 years old. They're just thinking differently. They're at that age where they want to slow down, man. They've been working for 40 years. And so I think that exit wave's upon us. To your point, who are buying those companies? 94% of American companies today are $5 million in revenue and below. So it's exactly what you're talking about. There's these $1.5 or $2 million deals, and who's buying those? They're not private equity ready. So who can buy them? Millennials could buy them. I think it's going to be the most entrepreneurial generation that we see. They are very in tune to growing with the end in mind. I think they're going to be your boomerang exits. I think like every decade they're going to grow, buy, and sell, grow, buy, and sell. And then the people in the middle, the Gen X, so they're people between the ages like 43 and 59. If you looked at what they want to do post-exit, so that we interview the business owners and they say, hey, after you sold your business, what do you want to do? Number one answer at 49% of the group, retire. The Generation X, if you're between the age of 43 and 59, they value their time. They know that they want room for a lot of passions in life. They're a business owner, but they're a father, they're a golfer, they're an RVer, and they know that they want to grow their business so that they can take the cash and go do other cool stuff in life. 38% of that generation wants to sell in the next 5 years. So I think millennials then, because you're not going to sell your business to a 50-year-old person because they want to grow their own and go do other stuff. But millennials, they are indicating that they want to grow, buy, sell, grow, buy, sell. So again, I think that's where this entrepreneurship through acquisition comes in. After they get through maybe the first leg of their career and they have a little bit of a savings, they can come in and start buying some of these baby boomer businesses. Again, knowing with the thought in mind that a lot of these businesses, 94%, are $5 million in revenue and below. And so that opens up a whole nother different, I think, buyer pool along the way. And these are the businesses that we interact with every single day, right? The hair salons, the small local grocery stores, so on and so forth. So I think it'll be an interesting market over the next 5 to 10 years for sure.
And that goes back to especially this Gen X, if they're wanting to sell at 60 and fully retire, which you and I both know they say that, and then they're bored in 2 years. And it's probably not going to happen, but we let them tell us that. But why it becomes more critical to make sure their personal financial situation
No doubt
is structured and set. And that's where a lot of people fall off, and they don't do that planning besides the purpose of what am I going to do every day, making sure that they are able to keep up with their standard of living.
Well, I would agree, right? That we call that the wealth gap at EPI, is that you have to understand what your wealth goal is so that you have for the next 25, 30, 40 years, whatever it is for you, have enough money to power that. Because to your point earlier, they love the income from their businesses. They use the income to power their lives. And I think if you ask many entrepreneurs, they actually don't really even know how much money they're actually spending per year. And then the business transacts, then it's gone, and you're like, oh shoot, that's not enough money for my 2 houses, my boat on the weekends. I think I might have to go back to work. And it's because you didn't put it all together, as you were alluding. You didn't put the financial plan around your business value and then what you want to do in life. And so, yeah, they start to fall off. So you have to identify your wealth gap, I guess is my point.
And is it a software that you've built for the, this the methodology that you have that an advisor can walk through, and so there can be some visual roadmaps for them?
Yeah, so we partner with software products, and so we stick to the education and the community building, and then we bring in different software products that surround the methodology. So short answer is yes, there's several endorsed products out there that EPI has vetted that advisors use to help develop this plan and streamline it. It has assessments in there, it has a gap analysis in there, and then you can take it into like a project management type platform and say, these are the things that we're going to work on this any given quarter or any given year. So the software for the advisor, it would just depend on your style and types of companies you're working with, right? Are we working in the micro market? We're working in the lower middle market, different types of data points that you're trying to get. But short answer, is that EPI has a nice partner network of vetted and endorsed products that power the methodology.
And if I want to become this SEPA, whatever line I'm coming in as a business coach, a CPA advisor, what's that look like for somebody who maybe is learning and wanting to dive deeper into this?
Yeah, so if credentialing is right for you, there's a little bit of a prereq that you have to come through, right? And you just fill out an application. But say you get through all of that and you're good to go, which most do. It is an online program in a three-layered process. There's a virtual classroom component, there's a self-study component, and then there's a live faculty Q&A at the end of each day. You're basically in class Monday through Friday, right? Basically, I would plan all day if I was doing it right. And then there's an exam that you have to take, and then a Beyond SEPA path thereafter. So once you pass the exam, you hold a credential, and once you hold a credential, you continue to develop yourself in the Beyond SEPA path through things like the Summit, Academy, chapters, so on and so forth. But you learn all that at earnsepa.com, and it'll take you right through that process.
Yeah, and I'll all be in the show notes.
Cool.
What are you? Let's talk a little bit of AI. What are
Sure.
you seeing? The benefit, some of the disruption, but where do you see that in the weeds that you're living on a day-to-day basis and with business owners and with the
We were
advisors?
just talking about this before I came on to your show, and so I think AI. My first comment would be like, I think a lot of people are scared of AI. I think it's here and here to stay, whether you like it or not. So you better get to know it so that you can stay ahead of the game. I think from an education standpoint, it's going to allow an owner to educate themselves a lot quicker and a lot deeper. I could just throw in, like, for example, somebody that was a business owner in our Philadelphia chapter was interested in understanding more about mergers and acquisitions because he had got an unsolicited offer on his company. So he went into ChatGPT and went in there and said, "Hey, can't is there a place, a group that I can learn about M&A transactions?" And our EPI Philadelphia chapter popped up, so he came to the meeting. And so in that case, I would say it's a huge positive. I think it's a huge win that it kind of streamlines our lives and gives us some critical information. I think if you're very transactional in nature as an advisor, it's probably going to take over for you. I think this is where some of the training that we do at EPI that kind of makes you more relationship oriented and it has a deeper dive education, that the AI is not going to be able to do that for you. It might generate some basics. It might do that initial assessment for you. But really, I think it's in the power of the collaborative relationship that you have with your advisor that really thrusts us forward. And so I actually think AI is a positive in our industry, both because it makes our advisors stronger and better. It allows us to challenge ourselves to have that deeper dive education so that we're not transactional. And then on the flip side, it allows our business owners, I think, to just start searching stuff and educate themselves and perhaps matchmake a little bit better than we're doing today to say, look, I'm looking for this estate planning attorney. I have a $5 million revenue business. What does this look like? Who do I ask? And what kind of questions should I be asking? How do I vet this advisor? Boom, you get all of that there, and bam, you're on your way to advisor introductions.
Yeah, that's interesting you brought that up because we're on our marketing team. We've been great on SEO over the years on the organic.
Yep.
So now we're trying to figure out with the different content that we put out, how can we ensure with AI and however they're searching, whether it's Google AI mode or whatnot, like exactly like where you came up, that you couldn't have planned that better, where they found you that way. And we're starting to see more and more people that not only do they not go past the first page for organic and all the sponsored, but now, and I see it in my daughter who's 19. I mean,
Yeah.
she's using chat and Claude and everything, and it's like the end all be all for them.
I know,
So it's
right?
where they don't even click anymore. And so trying for businesses to understand it too, of how you got to be able to figure it out as a way to keep the systems and processes so your team can focus on the bigger things. And I think humanizing, no matter what type of industry you're in, humanizing and being able to have you be able to focus on what you do best, but then figuring out how it can be done on the marketing side. And there's going to be those that figured it out and those that are left behind.
Yeah, I know, right? I think we get this question all the time when we speak around the country too. I think advisors are very scared of AI from that transactional standpoint. And so to your point, the humanization of everything I think is absolutely critical. The relationship oriented, the deeper dive, to be able to sit in a room and really dive, or even sit on a Zoom call and dive a little bit deeper, I think is absolutely critical to a successful advisor of the future, for sure.
And as we wind down here, obviously you're young, 40, you're growing this great company, having a passion on a day-to-day basis. But what do you want? What's the next 5 years look like? You said you got a 5-year plan.
Man, well, what a great question. So for me, it's really centered around my purpose. And my purpose in life, I believe, is to drive unique experiences. I love that both for me personally, and I think it's a gift that I can give out to the world. So for me, I will probably always be a business owner in some way, shape, or form. So there's a business owner component in there as well. I want to get into auto racing, so there's an auto racing component. DriveValue.com's on a Cup car in the NASCAR series, so that was our first kind of step into it. That has been fun. I think the moment I sell my company, I'm going to change out my bus that I have now, my motor coach, and me and Joy are going to take a year off and just travel to the states that we've never been to. And I want to write a book. I think those are the most immediate things that are on my mind. But to your point, yeah, there's a 5-year vision that takes me to about 45, 46 years old that I certainly want to try to complete, no doubt.
Yeah, he's practicing what he preaches, my friends.
Trying to, man.
I know we just went tip of the iceberg here. We could have dug into so many things in regards to like what's the intricacies of what the sale looks like, installment sales, lowering taxes, all that.
Yeah.
That's why you as business owners, you need to make sure you're aligned with the appropriate advisors that are in the weeds and are learning and living and ensuring that they're helping you understand how to build the best intrinsic enterprise value, but also, like you had stated multiple times, the emotional impact of what it would look like if you don't own that business anymore, even if financially you're independent and things are fine. It's the most important component here is what's my mental well-being going to be.
Absolutely.
So show notes, best way to reach you guys. You've got a great podcast yourself, which we'll have in there. You've got the EPI website, LinkedIn. We'll have all that in there. Advisors, if you're listening, definitely get in touch with Exit Planning. They're going to help you become better advisors, CPAs as well, growth coaches. And for business owners, just make sure you're aligned the right way because 90% of your wealth is tied to your business. Don't mess it up. Any last words?
No, I appreciate it. I had a lot of fun. Thank you.
Awesome, Scott. Well, thanks for joining us. Stay tuned later this month for a brand new episode of Your Wealth and Beyond. Found it valuable, forward it on to somebody, and like and follow us. We'll talk to you real soon. Happy planning, everybody.